I 35F, need advice about my situation with my husband, 38M, and mother-in-law, 65F. This is going to be a long and detailed post, but I need to share everything to get proper advice. I'm a registered nurse from Alaska, where I worked at the regional trauma center while also helping with the accounting for my dad's fishing business. Let me give you some background. My dad started as a commercial fisherman with a single weathered boat, but through sheer determination and hard work, he built it into a successful company that now operates several fishing vessels and a processing plant. After my mom passed away when I was young, my stepmom Carol came into our lives. She's been more than I could have ever hoped for, supportive, loving, and always there when I needed guidance. Living in Alaska shaped who I am. We're talking about a place where winter doesn't ask permission before it hits, and you learn to be self-reliant pretty quickly. I built a solid career as a trauma nurse, earned respect from my colleagues, and maintained a good work-life balance. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was fulfilling. I had a job I loved, family I could count on, and enough savings to feel secure about my future. 3 years ago, everything changed when I attended a medical conference in California. That's where I met Michael, a sales manager for a major pharmaceutical company. He wasn't like the men I knew back home. He was polished, sophisticated, and seemed genuinely fascinated by my life in Alaska. He asked thoughtful questions about my work in the trauma center and showed real interest in my dad's business. Our whirlwind romance started with long-distance dating. Michael would fly up to Alaska whenever he could, and each visit felt magical. He'd bring me little gifts from California, take me to fancy restaurants in Anchorage, and talk about our future together. During those visits, he painted a picture of a life that seemed perfect, a beautiful house in California, successful careers for both of us, and a partnership based on mutual respect and understanding. After a year of long-distance dating, we got married in a beautiful ceremony that combined both our families' traditions. My dad, despite his initial reservations about me moving so far away, gave us his blessing and a generous wedding gift. Michael seemed like the perfect husband during our honeymoon, attentive, caring, and always talking about our bright future together. The first red flag appeared when we discussed living arrangements. Michael suggested we live with his mother Linda temporarily, citing her health issues and need for support. It's just until she gets better, he assured me. Plus, we can save money for our own place. It seemed reasonable at the time, and I wanted to show that I could be flexible and understanding. Linda's house was impressive, a sprawling 2-story home in an upscale neighborhood with manicured lawns and a view of the bay. But from the moment I moved in, something felt off. The house was immaculate, almost museum-like, with expensive furniture covered in plastic and rooms that looked like they came straight out of a home decor magazine. The problem started subtly. Linda would hover while I cooked, making small, helpful comments about how things should be done in her kitchen. "Oh dear," she'd say with a thin smile, "that's not how we prepare meals in this family. Let me show you the proper way." Every task I performed was met with criticism thinly veiled as guidance. Within weeks, the criticism became more direct. My housekeeping wasn't up to her standards. My cooking was bland and tasteless. Even the way I dressed was scrutinized. "A wife in our social circle needs to maintain certain standards," she'd say, eyeing my comfortable nursing scrubs with disapproval. Michael's behavior changed too. He started spending more time at work, coming home later and later. When I tried to discuss Linda's controlling behavior, he'd dismiss my concerns. "Mom's just trying to help you adjust," he'd say. "She knows what's best for our family." It was like watching the man I fell in love with slowly disappear, replaced by someone who prioritized his mother's wishes over our marriage. The situation escalated when Linda started having mysterious health issues. According to her, her doctor advised against any strenuous activities. Yet mysteriously, these health problems never seemed to affect her social life or shopping trips. Instead, they became a convenient excuse to pile more housework onto me. One particularly memorable incident occurred about 6 months into our marriage. I had just finished a grueling 12-hour shift at the hospital, dealing with multiple trauma cases. When I got home, Linda was in tears, claiming the washing machine had broken down because I didn't know how to operate it properly. The machine was at least 15 years old, but according to her, it had worked perfectly until I started using it. Michael sided with her immediately. "You need to be more careful with our things," he said. "Maybe you should ask your dad to help us buy a new one." This became a pattern. Linda would find something that needed replacing or upgrading, and I was expected to ask my dad for money. The financial demands grew increasingly outrageous. First, it was appliances. Then came the furniture. Soon, Linda was talking about full-scale renovations. "The kitchen needs modernizing," she'd insist. "The bathrooms are outdated. The backyard needs landscaping." Each time, I was expected to make the call to my dad, with Linda hovering nearby, making sure I presented these requests as absolute necessities. During video calls with my dad, Linda would orchestrate everything. She'd tell me exactly what to say, how to act, and would stand just off camera, monitoring every word. If I deviated from her script, she'd find ways to punish me later, forgetting to tell me about important messages, scheduling contractor visits during my work hours, or criticizing me in front of guests. The pressure to quit my nursing job became relentless. Linda would schedule home improvement projects during my shifts, then complain to Michael about my lack of commitment to the family. She'd make appointments with contractors without consulting me, then act devastated when I couldn't be there to oversee the work. Michael's transformation was perhaps the most painful part. He started drinking more heavily, coming home smelling of alcohol most nights. When he was home, he'd either ignore me completely or join his mother in criticizing everything I did. "You're just not trying hard enough," became his common refrain. "Mom does so much for us, and you're being ungrateful." The isolation grew worse with each passing month. Linda managed to control my social life by scheduling endless house-related tasks that required my presence. She'd interrupt my phone calls with friends, claiming there was some urgent matter that needed my attention. Even my weekly calls with Dad and Carol became monitored events, with Linda always finding a reason to be in the room. The financial manipulation reached new heights when Linda discovered I had a separate savings account. She threw what I can only describe as a calculated tantrum, crying to Michael about how I didn't trust the family. That night, Michael demanded I close my personal account and transfer everything into our joint account, which, I later discovered, his mother had access to for emergencies. My professional life began to crumble as well. Linda started misplacing my nursing license renewal paperwork. Important emails from the hospital mysteriously ended up in our spam folder. My nursing uniforms would disappear from the laundry, only to reappear damaged or stained. When I tried to address these issues, Linda would gasp in offense, tears instantly appearing in her eyes, while Michael would accuse me of paranoia. The control extended to every aspect of my life. Linda began dictating what I could wear, insisting that as a part of the family, I needed to dress appropriately for our social status. My comfortable nursing clothes were replaced with expensive outfits she selected. My casual shoes were deemed embarrassing and replaced with designer brands that left my feet aching. Even my hair and makeup became subjects of her constant criticism and guidance. I watched in horror as my savings drained away on endless home improvements and unnecessary purchases. Linda always had a new project, a new crisis, or a new social obligation that required financial investment. When I expressed concern about the mounting expenses, she would remind me, with a sweet but venomous smile, how fortunate I was to have a father who could help us maintain our standard of living. The psychological toll has become unbearable. As a trauma nurse, I was trained to handle crisis situations, multiple traumas, life and death decisions, grieving families. But this slow, insidious erosion of my identity has left me feeling helpless in ways I never imagined possible. When I catch glimpses of myself in the mirrors of Linda's perfectly decorated house, I barely recognize the woman staring back. Gone is the confident nurse who could manage any emergency. In her place stands someone who flinches at the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Linda's control has become absolute through her sophisticated methods of surveillance. She installed a security system that seems more focused on monitoring my movements than protecting the house. She reviews the footage daily, making pointed comments about my activities, when I make phone calls, how long I spend in different rooms, even what time I go to bed. She claims it's all for family security, but it feels more like a prison monitoring system. The isolation is perhaps the most devastating aspect. I think back to my life in Alaska, the camaraderie in the trauma unit, the trust between colleagues during critical cases, the warmth of family relationships, and it feels like a different lifetime. Now, every conversation is monitored, every friendship is sabotaged, and every professional connection is systematically undermined. Linda has created a world where she is the sun, and everyone else must orbit around her needs and demands. My hands, once steady enough to insert central lines and handle critical procedures, now shake when I hear Linda's voice. The mind that could rapidly process complex medical information and make split-second decisions now second-guesses even the simplest choices. It's as if I'm watching myself disappear, piece by piece, replaced by a shadow of who I used to be. I need advice desperately. How do you begin to rebuild yourself when you've been systematically torn down? The financial abuse they've inflicted on my father through manipulation is significant, but I'm more worried about salvaging what's left of my identity and independence. Every day that passes feels like another piece of myself slips away. Please, if anyone has experienced something similar, I need guidance. How do you escape a cage that's been built so gradually you didn't even notice its construction? How do you reclaim your identity when it's been slowly chipped away, piece by piece? I know I need to make changes, but I'm terrified of the consequences. Any advice would be deeply appreciated. Update 1. Things have taken a drastic turn since my last post. Under constant pressure from Linda and Michael, I've been forced to quit my nursing job. The situation became unbearable when Linda started scheduling multiple contractor appointments during my shifts, then had a severe anxiety attack over my selfishness in choosing work over family obligations. Linda orchestrates these home improvement projects with frightening precision. Each morning, she presents a new list of tasks and appointments that conveniently conflict with my work schedule. When I tried to maintain my hospital shifts, she would call Michael in tears, claiming I was neglecting critical home repairs that were affecting her health. Michael's response was devastating. He came home one night, heavily intoxicated, and delivered an ultimatum: either quit your job or move out. Mom needs you here. When I tried to argue that we needed my income, he laughed bitterly. Your father can help us if we need money. That's what family does, right? The next day, I submitted my resignation letter, my hands shaking as I typed. The financial demands have become outrageous. Linda is insisting on a complete kitchen renovation, claiming our current one is unsafe and causing her health issues. The estimates she's getting are astronomical, $45,000 for just the kitchen alone. When I suggested more affordable options, she burst into tears, accusing me of trying to endanger her health. Your father wouldn't want me living in these conditions, she sobbed while Michael glared at me. Before each video call with my dad, Linda now coaches me like a director preparing an actor. Remember to mention my heart condition, she'll instruct. And emphasize how the kitchen fumes are affecting my breathing. She stands just out of frame during these calls, making subtle hand gestures to guide my performance. If I deviate from her script, she punishes me later with endless criticism and manufactured emergencies. The control over my finances has become absolute. After discovering my separate savings account, Linda threw what I can only describe as a calculated tantrum. She cried to Michael about how I didn't trust the family, and he forced me to close the account. Everything I had saved from my nursing career, nearly $30,000, is now in a joint account that Linda has access to for emergencies. Within days, she spent $8,000 on new furniture without consulting me, claiming it was necessary for her health to have proper seating. My nursing license is now at risk of expiring. Linda keeps misplacing the renewal paperwork, and Michael says it's not a priority right now. Yesterday, I found my continuing education materials in the trash. Linda claimed she thought it was old junk. Each day, I feel my professional identity slipping away. The skills I spent years developing are growing rusty, and my professional network is rapidly disappearing. The house has become my prison. Without my job, I have no excuse to leave. Linda schedules my days down to the minute, supervising contractors, meeting with designers, attending her social functions. She parades me around like a trophy, introducing me as a nurse who finally saw the light and chose family over career. When I try to make plans with former colleagues, she creates emergencies that require my immediate attention. Michael's drinking has gotten worse. He comes home late most nights, reeking of whiskey. When he is home, he's either passed out on the couch or acting as his mother's enforcer, backing up her every demand. Last week, when I tried to discuss our financial situation, he grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises and said, "Stop making mom upset." I'm secretly documenting everything, every financial demand, every expenditure, every incident. But I have to be extremely careful. Linda checks my phone and computer regularly, claiming she's protecting the family's privacy. I'm using a hidden cloud account, but I'm terrified of what will happen if they discover it. I need advice more than ever. How do I protect my father from their financial manipulation? Should I try to renew my nursing license secretly? Most importantly, how do I start planning an escape when they control every aspect of my life? Update 2, I just found out I'm pregnant. When I saw those 2 lines on the test, I felt terror instead of joy. Linda was there when I took the test. She'd been tracking my cycle and insisted on being present, claiming she had a feeling. Her reaction was immediate and calculated. This is wonderful news. Think of all the things we'll need for the baby. Your father will be so excited to help with the nursery. The financial demands have escalated dramatically since my pregnancy announcement. Linda has already planned out an entire wing of the house for the nursery, complete with designer furniture and custom murals. A child in this family deserves the very best, she declares while browsing $2,000 cribs online. Every time I suggest something more reasonable, she tears up and asks why I want to deprive my baby of a proper start in life. Linda now orchestrates elaborate video calls where she presents detailed lists of essential items for the baby to my father. She's already had me ask him for money for a complete nursery renovation, high-end baby furniture, and a meditation room that she claims is necessary for my pregnancy wellness. When I expressed concern about the mounting expenses, she smiled sweetly and said, "Your father would want his grandchild to have everything perfect, wouldn't he?" Michael's behavior has become increasingly erratic. He spends most nights drinking, and when he does come home, he makes cruel comments about my changing body. "You look like an elephant," he sneered last night. "I can't even stand to sleep next to you anymore." He's moved into one of the guest rooms, claiming my pregnancy snoring keeps him awake, but I can hear him on the phone late at night, having whispered conversations I'm not supposed to hear. Linda uses my pregnancy as another means of control. She insists on attending every doctor's appointment, speaking over me and making decisions about my prenatal care. She's changed my diet completely, throwing out food she deems harmful to the baby, and replacing it with expensive organic products that she forces me to ask my father to pay for. If I try to eat something she hasn't approved, she creates a scene about how I'm endangering her grandchild. The surveillance has become even more intense. Linda has installed additional security cameras, claiming she needs to monitor my safety during the pregnancy. She tracks my every movement, criticizing how I walk, how I sit, how I breathe. She's even started timing my bathroom visits, saying she needs to monitor my hydration. My medical knowledge as a nurse has become another source of conflict. When I try to explain standard pregnancy practices or question some of Linda's more extreme ideas about prenatal care, she accuses me of thinking I know better than a mother. She started telling her friends that pregnancy has made me emotionally unstable and that she needs to protect her grandchild from my poor decisions. The isolation is becoming unbearable. Linda has convinced Michael that I shouldn't drive while pregnant, effectively cutting off my last bit of independence. She monitors my phone calls with Dad and Carol, always finding ways to emphasize how much money we need for baby preparations. When I tried to reach out to my old colleagues from the hospital, she intercepted the messages and responded on my behalf, telling them I was too unwell to maintain contact. Michael's drinking has gotten worse since the pregnancy announcement. The other night, he came home drunk and started throwing things, screaming about how the baby would ruin everything. When I tried to calm him down, he shoved me against the wall. Linda witnessed the whole thing but later told me I had provoked him by being hormonal and difficult. I need help more than ever. The pregnancy has made everything more complicated and escape seems almost impossible now. How do I protect my baby from this toxic environment? How do I ensure my father isn't completely drained financially before the baby arrives? Most importantly, how do I get out safely when I'm more vulnerable than ever? Update 3, I'm writing this from the safety of my father's home in Alaska. I finally escaped with my baby boy 2 weeks ago, and I need to share what happened in case it helps someone else in a similar situation. After my son was born, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Linda took complete control of the baby care, criticizing my every move as a mother. "You're holding him wrong, you're feeding him wrong, you don't know what you're doing." She even set up a nursery in her room, insisting that she needed to supervise nighttime feedings. Despite my nursing background and maternal instincts, I was treated like an incompetent servant in my own child's life. The financial abuse reached its peak after the birth. Linda started renovating the entire house, claiming it needed to be baby-proof to her standards. Each project cost thousands, and all of it was charged to my father through emotional manipulation. She would coach me before every video call, making me emphasize how these changes were essential for the baby's safety. The spending became so outrageous that she demanded a complete overhaul of the air conditioning system, claiming the current one was spreading toxins to the baby. Michael's drinking and violent behavior escalated dramatically. He resented the baby's crying and my attention being divided. He started staying out later, coming home drunk almost every night. The verbal abuse turned physical, pushing, shoving, grabbing my arms hard enough to leave bruises. One particularly terrifying night, he came home heavily intoxicated and started throwing things around the nursery, screaming about how the baby had ruined his life. When I tried to protect my son, Michael shoved me so hard I nearly fell while holding the baby. Linda witnessed everything but later claimed I had provoked him by being too focused on the baby. That incident was my breaking point. I realized I wasn't just fighting for my own survival anymore, my son's life and future were at stake. I started planning my escape in secret, using the few moments alone during my son's nap times to make arrangements. I created a hidden email account at the public library and reached out to a domestic violence support group. They helped me develop a safe exit strategy. The opportunity came when Linda had orchestrated another large money transfer from my father. She had been pushing for an elaborate landscaping project, claiming the current yard was unsafe for her grandson. The morning after the money arrived, while Linda was at her weekly hair appointment and Michael was at work, I packed a small bag with essentials, some clothes, important documents, and my son's favorite comfort toy. I had called a taxi service from a burner phone I'd managed to hide in my nursing bag, the one thing Linda never searched because she found it too medical. We went straight to the airport, and I used cash I'd been secretly saving from selling some of the designer clothes Linda had forced me to buy. The entire time at the airport, I was terrified they would somehow find us before we could board the plane. The legal aftermath has been intense but successful. With help from my father's lawyer, we documented all the financial abuse. It totaled over $230,000 that they had manipulated from my father through coercion. The court ordered full repayment. We had evidence of everything: the manipulated video calls, the endless home improvement projects, the coerced financial transfers. Linda and Michael were forced to sell their house to comply with the judgment, a fitting end to their reign of domestic terror. The divorce proceedings moved quickly once evidence of Michael's violence was presented. The bruises, the documented incidents, and even testimony from neighbors who had witnessed his drunken rages made it clear I needed protection. I have full custody of my son, with Michael granted only supervised visitation rights, which he hasn't even attempted to exercise. He's required to pay child support, though he's already behind on payments. Living back in Alaska feels like waking up from a nightmare. My father and Carol have been incredibly supportive, helping me rebuild my life piece by piece. I'm working with a therapist to process the trauma, and I've started the process of reinstating my nursing license. The hospital where I used to work has even offered me a position once I'm ready to return. The aftermath of our escape has brought some unexpected developments. Linda and Michael's reputation in their community has been shattered. The court proceedings revealed their manipulation tactics, and their social circle has largely abandoned them. Linda's carefully crafted image of the perfect mother and grandmother crumbled when the evidence of their financial and emotional abuse became public. They were forced to move into a small apartment in a less desirable area, and Linda now works as a cashier at a local grocery store, a far cry from her previous life of luxury and control. The most beautiful moments now are the quiet ones with my son, watching him play in the safety of my childhood home. He's starting to smile more, and his nightmares are becoming less frequent. The sound of his laughter in the morning is healing something deep inside me that I thought was broken forever. My father loves being a grandfather, and Carol has been amazing with him, showing me what real, healthy family love looks like. For anyone trapped in a similar situation, there is hope. Look for your moment, plan carefully, and know that you deserve better. Document everything you can, but prioritize your safety above all else. The financial abuse can be addressed later, your life and well-being come first. Thank you to everyone who offered advice on my previous posts. Your support gave me the strength to leave when I needed it most. We're safe now, and for the first time in years, I'm looking forward to the future.